Sometimes, the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And now, your host, Ben Adelberg.
Welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 71. Hope you all are having a great week, finally coming down from the high of the Masters, but are looking forward, just like I am, to the PGA Championship next month. Yes, with the reshuffle of the majors, we now have the PGA next month, the U.S. Open in June at Pebble Beach, and then we're off to the Open Championship in Portrush in July. We're going to hop into this week's episode relatively quickly, but please remember to continue following us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We have some exciting episodes and announcements heading your way in the upcoming weeks. And following us online, well, that's a great way to get all of the vital information about the podcast before anyone else does. Another thing to do, if you haven't already, please leave a review in Apple Podcast. When you do that, screenshot it, post it on Instagram, and tag us, and I'll send you a free Back of the Range Golf Podcast golf towel. Just another way to thank you all for listening to the podcast. And in these reviews, say what you like, what you don't like, and more importantly, what kinds of guests you would like to see in the future. All the links to our social media channels, the website where you can buy shirts and hats and all sorts of merch, that's at thebackoftherange.com. And remember, all those links, that's available too in the show notes of this episode. This week's episode puts a nice little bow on the Masters as well as last year's U.S. Amateur at Pebble Beach. In fact, this episode now completes the foursome, so to speak, that were inside the ropes for the U.S. Amateur Final. The final match was between Viktor Hovland of Oklahoma State and Devon Bling of UCLA. Both of those guys were guests of the podcast just a few weeks ago. Alan Bratton, the head coach at Oklahoma State men's golf, well, he was on Victor's bag for the U.S. Amateur, and he was a guest earlier in Season 1. So that leaves Devon Bling's caddy. Well, Andrew Larkin wasn't just his caddy at the USAM, wasn't just his caddy a couple weeks ago at the Masters, but he's also the assistant coach of UCLA men's golf. And he's our guest this week at the Back of the Range. We spoke about his experience playing collegiately at Occidental College, playing professionally on the Latin America Tour, and most recently, his experience working with the UCLA team as they get ready for regionals, being on the bag for Devon at the USAM, being on the bag at the Masters, and what lies ahead for him on and off the golf course. So we're going to hop right in. Coach Larkin, thanks so much for joining us at the Back of the Range.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to talking a little golf with you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, we're recording this the Tuesday after the Masters, and you have had just an absolutely incredible week for our listeners that got to listen to our previous episode of Devon Bling. He's the U.S. Amateur runner-up from last year, got him the berth to the Masters, and you were on the bag with him at Augusta National the entire week. So before we talk about your playing career, your coaching career, and a handful of other things, physically, how are you feeling?
Definitely a little tired, for sure. I mean, it's a tough walk. I mean, Augusta is a really hilly venue, and it's pretty humid, especially for us, on the West Coast where we don't have any humidity. Just to be walking around in it like Devon experienced all week, it's a huge change of condition and takes a lot out of your body. And then to throw in, a pretty thick white jumpsuit all week, definitely got in a good sweat. But getting adjusted back to the time here, we had to get up pretty early on Sunday for the tee time adjustment, and then both of us caught the first flight out on Monday. So he's trying to get caught up on school, and I'm trying to get caught up on a little bit of sleep and with everything with our team going into Pac-12s.
Yeah, and what's great is that your team, while you were away and while Devon was away, and I know Devon's a starter on the he's in the starting five. Your team really is really ramping up for the Pac-12 championship. I know that they picked up a couple wins in a row. I know the Seattle University tournament. I know that Devon did play in that, and then just the next tournament in Wyoming, the Wyoming Classic. You win that. You have two individuals that go back to back. So I can't imagine that UCLA men's golf could get any better or any hotter. What are some of the things with your coaching that you and head coach Freeman are trying to go ahead and do pushing into the Pac-12 championship?
Yeah, for us right now, I think it's definitely a reflection of where our program has come back in the last few years. I think one of the biggest things we've really tried to focus on is getting the depth in our roster. So when we have events like this, we have other guys that are able to step in and make a huge difference for our team. And that's really what we had in Arizona last week, to go in without Devon, and certainly with some of the distractions that come with having one of your teammates playing in the Masters, to get a win early in the week and then play really well in our second event, finish third at Arizona State event in one of the best fields in the country, beat Oklahoma State, who's the number one team in the country there. Really proud of the boys. And I think for us, it's been really trying to refine our guys' skill. We pushed them pretty hard in the month of March, and they had some pretty strenuous requirements that they had to hit, kind of wanting them to find a little bit of a balance academically. Being a quarter school in March is always, a balancing act for us, since we need to make sure they can prep for finals and do everything they need to succeed academically, while still giving them requirements that they need to. So we did a lot of distance testing work, certainly some on-course work with the guys in March. And I think that really kind of got them into shape going into the beginning of April. And, for us, that's kind of what we're focusing on now. We had a little bit of on-course team games today, kind of going through the last little bit of refining any equipment that we need our guys to have going to Pac-12s. And then it's certainly going to be, really going to a tournament like that, take care of your body, really get to understand the golf course well at Eugene Country Club. And it's 36-18-18. So getting our guys in the right mindset, knowing that you can make a couple mistakes early, and certainly you have a huge amount of holes in front of you to rally back. So keep building on the momentum we've already started, and, hope all the guys can, do everything they need to keep their games and their bodies in check for the marathon of golf that's about to come.
When you talk about, on-course testing, or, working the guys really hard on the course with distance drills or short game drills, without getting into, the entire specifics of the ideology of your coaching or UCLA's program, can you maybe just give listeners an example of one of the things you put the team through that maybe an amateur can then translate into their own game, whether or not they're just trying to, shave a couple shots off their game, or if they're getting ready for a tournament, or maybe a member guest, maybe an example if you can provide one.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things for us, and I think one of the big changes to college golf with the addition of technology in the last decade, is something even as simple as, throwing our guys onto a TrackMan and getting them to go through a full combine there, which is, it's a 60-shot test that you go through different distance and accuracy testing on a TrackMan and through the TrackMan app. And for us, we can provide our players with immediate feedback, so they can know exactly where they are with their distances and accuracy, and it translates to a score. So that's a really easy one for us to do, especially when we need to find time where our guys can go do something individually on their own. And we set a different standard for it. So the standard gets a little bit harder throughout the year. And then, for us in college golf, I think the two other big areas certainly are course management, making sure that we're playing to the probabilities for the most part, that our guys are leaving themselves on the correct side of the hole. So playing where the next shot's going to be easiest. So if they miss a shot, have the easier of the up and down, whether that means chipping uphill or have the most green to work with. And then certainly dialing in their wedges. That was a huge focus in March.
Sure.
For us, knowing we were going into courses where we were going to be able to hit driver and we are going to get away with a lot, but making sure our guys with the scoring clubs in their hands were focused. So doing a lot of distance testing, both with TrackMan and on the golf course with their wedges, to make sure that when they had one of those in their hand, that the next shot they were going to have is certainly a makeable putt.
Sure. Well, the thing before we get into some of the other things you've been doing in this past couple of weeks, and even going as far back to the USAM at Pebble Beach, where you were on the bag for Devon there, you've been playing golf for quite some time, and you played at Occidental College out in LA, so you've been there for quite some time. You had a great career there. It's a D3 school. And I guess my question is, I know you turned pro after college. What led you to decide to turn pro coming out of Occidental? Yeah, for me, I was lucky to be a pretty good athlete in two sports. So in addition to golf, I also played college soccer. And, that's one of the main reasons I ended up at a Division III school and at Occidental. I wanted to play multiple sports in college, and I had a chance
going in through the recruiting process to play either Division I golf or Division I soccer, but was really had my heart set on playing both. So that's kind of what took me down the road to get to a school like Oxy. And had a great career there playing both, and really excelled on the golf side, being all conference all 4 years and winning multiple events. And I knew when I was finishing school that my game was nowhere near what it could be, but I'd already had success on a good level on college as well as amateur golf outside of it. So I really wanted to see where I could take myself. So I was lucky to have the chance to turn pro and played full time for 3 years while I was the head men's and women's golf coach at Oxy, which kind of provided me a little bit of a security blanket in terms of finances and be able to pay for everything, plus
Sure.
places to practice and all of that. And it was something I love. I had a great time and had, good career playing on the mini tours and down in PGA Tour Latin America. And still lucky was able to parlay that into joining the PGA of America, where I still play, competitively now.
Yeah, and you mentioned the mini tours, you mentioned PGA Tour Latin America. I mean, this is kind of around, I guess, 2012, 2013 when you turned pro. It seems like the PGA Tour has really promoted the Webb and even the Latin America Tour, Mackenzie. They're promoting their lower tier tours a little bit better now. Was that always the case back in 2013? What was your experience playing in Latin America?
Yeah, it definitely was very new and up and coming.
Right.
I thought Latin America, it was only the first couple of years of the tour, and they ran it pretty well. But I would still say, you would expect, a lot of different languages down in Latin America, and they really had it, come to the point where they were going to do everything to make it easier for Americans to come down there. So, for me, not speaking Spanish, I kind of had to find the travel buddies that could just to get around a lot of the places. And then, one of my favorite experiences, which is a little bit hectic and crazy, I played in the first Q school when the PGA Tour bought the Mackenzie Tour and decided to relaunch it. And it was kind of just, a cluster of a Q school where they're trying to make everything up. It's not like they have it now with 5 or 6 different sites. We had, 312 guys at one golf course going for like 40 cards. And our second or third round, we had a weather delay and they were having trouble communicating with everyone. So you had all 312 guys show up for an 8 a.m. restart and how to find space on the range. They ran out of range balls. And it was just a whole crazy mess where they were still in the process of trying to figure it out and get their staff in place. But they've done a great job since then, kind of coming along and developing it, but definitely getting to be on those tours and play through Q schools with them while they were trying to figure it out certainly made for some funny experiences and from some growth from my end as well as on the PGA Tour's end.
Now, I know you're there trying to chase the dream of making it to the PGA Tour, and you're going that route. What was a time that you were there playing the Latin America Tour where you just found yourself in a country or at a time where you're just thinking to myself, what am I doing here?
Definitely a few. We had a good one in Brazil. I forget what year it was, but we were down in Argentina, and we were rained out. And for us, and a couple of the other players, I shared a room with another player from California. The golf course was about 20 or 30 minutes from us, and we ended up playing almost 54 holes in about 36 hours to catch up to everything.
Oh, wow.
And we had to worry and really start making choices like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish in time to get over and catch my international flight. So now we're talking, will the check be worth the $1,200? And, we have a shuttle driver from our hotel who's saying, well, if you guys need to get there at 5 a.m., I won't drive you because I don't want to go through certain areas. Then you really start to think like, wow, this is not everything it seems to be cracked up to be on the outside here. Really got to start making choices. So definitely some experiences like that. But, I think the camaraderie you get with the other pros you're with, and especially if you got to go with some of your friends, getting to go through some of those funny experiences are things, in the moment can be a little nuts and hectic, but looking back on now, certainly, created some great bonds and some great memories.
Yeah. I see these guys that are coming out of college or, I've spoken to professionals that are on the mini tours or they're on the web. And every single year there's another crop of college players all over the country. Those are just the ones that you may know of, like a Devon Bling or a Victor Hovland or a Matt Wolf or, Justin Suh. You have all these names that and then there's hundreds and hundreds of other names that you've never heard of that are trying to do the exact same thing. I guess, I don't really have a question, more so as just, how do you work with your college players? And when the time comes, how do you get them prepared to make that decision, knowing what you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's trying to give them, the best advisement and maybe where to go. Because I think the biggest thing is when you turn pro, you really need to be in a place where you're going to have a chance to play a lot of events. I think the Monday qualifying route certainly works for some players, but I think unless you're already at a place where you succeeded at a very high level and you know what it's like to do that, you really need to go and play events, whether it's mini tours, for some of our players going to the summer, if they don't have, if they can't qualify for PG Tour Latin America or Canada, and they don't want to play, like the Golden State Tour or Pepsi Tour, doing something like I did maybe the summer of 2014, I went up to play all the state opens on the East Coast. So getting to go kind of create a full schedule where you could go from, Massachusetts to New Hampshire to Vermont and play all of those. So you're playing in events that are relatively cheap and affordable, but have pretty good purses because they're well sponsored. Go to places where you can get reps in and really learn how to play this game at a high level, because it's definitely different than college. You need to have the ability to shoot significantly under par, where in college golf, for the most part, if you shot, one under even at really high level tournaments all year, you have a decent chance to be an All-American. At professional golf, and especially at a place like the Web, if you shoot, 4 or 5 under, you might miss a cut.
Of course.
So you really needed to learn how to go refine it ultimately. So it's really keeping our guys' expectations in check. And then, one thing I thought I did really well with myself was kind of create a long-term plan. Like, don't just go into it being like, I need to go succeed or fail immediately. Give yourself a window. So for me, I kind of created a checklist of goals I had to hit in my first 3 years. And if I didn't hit, I think like 75% of those goals, then I was going to call it quits, just because, like you said, if I can't grow my game and succeed at a decent level after 3 years, that's now 3 more years of players I got to contend with, not just in college, but all over the world.
Right.
So really keeping something in perspective like that, where you could have realistic goals, set a timetable with your friends and your family where financially it's suitable to you to go forward, but certainly keep, what you need to accomplish by the end of that window to make sure that, you're growing as a player and that you're not just staying the same. Because if you're staying the same, there's going to be a ton more kids that are trying to take your job.
Yeah, and the problem with golf is that while that sounds all very prudent and very intelligent and very responsible, as well as everyone else does, is that you can actually go to I believe this happened to Martin Trainer. He just went to a Web Monday, just kind of like, yeah, I'll sign up for this thing. Then he goes ahead and gets in and wins it. And then he's off to the races with a couple Web wins, and now he's on the PGA Tour. That's kind of one thing about our game. It's not, you don't see any 32-year-old guys, thinking, yeah, I still have the dream of the NBA still alive, or I think I can still play quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, there are guys out there where all it takes is one good week that snowballs into a couple things, and bam, they could be on the PGA Tour.
Definitely. Look at it just last week with it was a Connor Casey. Going through
Corey
Tour
Connor. Yeah, Corey Connor.
Yeah, Corey Connor. Yeah. How crazy is that, going from not being in an event to 10 days later playing in the Masters and making the cut there?
Yeah.
So certainly it can happen, and that's where I think you can get for a guy, whether it's a mini tour player or on the lower levels of the PGA Tour, I think it's where you need to do it to a point where financially it's not costing you a lot, because that's where you get to. For me, when I was 25 and UCLA gave me the opportunity to come over here, that's kind of the first time I really had to make a choice where, are you going to play full time, or do I want to take this opportunity? And it was such a great school, and a school that I grew up right around. I knew how good the golf program was, and I wanted to spend the time to learn from Coach Freeman, that it was just almost too good of an opportunity to pass up. And I was at the Colorado Open when he offered me the job, and kind of was there and seeing some of these players being like, do I really want to wait another 5 years, be 30 or 32 to kind of figure out what the next step's going to be?
Right.
And I was lucky to have a great step in the coaching path come my way, and certainly, had no regrets about it whatsoever, and still have the PGA of America and all the SCPGA tournaments by us locally in Southern California that have still given me that nice outlet to be competitive and hopefully try to get into a couple tournaments here and there. But definitely have, fallen in love with the coaching route, and keeps me, in the golf business and definitely heavily involved in the game.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's funny, while you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, Tiger's, redemption and Tiger's win at the Masters is hopefully going to put more spotlight on the game of golf. But then I'm also thinking, like, for the guys that are on the web, or the guys that are on Latin America tour, or Mackenzie, or anything like that, I think Corey Connors is actually going to do more for that group of guys than Tiger, because they're looking at that guy. It's like, that could have been me, or that can be me.
No doubt about that. I mean, there can only be one Tiger Woods. I mean, he's going to soon make history here, but there could definitely be, a lot of guys that could now follow that path, go, Monday in and play great, and all of a sudden, who knows, you're in the next major.
Yeah.
So definitely going to give some boost and encouragement to those guys, without a doubt. And it'll be interesting to see how he does the rest of the season. I think a lot of people, will keep an eye on that, but definitely, pretty cool journey there. And we'll give a lot of those guys motivation to keep working hard on their games, not just on their tours, but certainly try to get to the next level.
Yeah. You mentioned jumping from, taking the assistant job at UCLA. I'm sure there are many differences, whether it's facilities or from D3 to D1. I know that the ball is the same size and the hole is the same size, but what are some of the differences that you've seen just jumping from D3 to a Pac-12 school of UCLA as far as coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, especially dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, I mean, the big problems are the same, right? They're all trying to figure out their lives. You got to make them work a little bit, got to make them get up early. All the little stuff stays the same. I mean, certainly the resources at a place like UCLA compared to a place like Occidental are through the roof. I would say, the big difference, with us, definitely a little bit of the expectations and the pressure. I mean, we're trying to do what we did with Devon, get guys from exceptional junior golfers to professionals, where at a place like Oxy, it's definitely a little bit more focused on the student athlete experience and making sure that we can use the game of golf to teach them values that are going to enhance their education and enhance everything they do during their time in college. Certainly the recruiting side, I think, significantly different. I mean, at Oxy, it was kind of, I did more than most D3 coaches. I think that's what helped make me a good recruiter, to go out and try to actually make kids want to come to Oxy, where a lot of Division III schools maybe settle on who will just show up there.
Sure.
Where at UCLA, I mean, we're trying to compete against other schools for the best players, not just in the U.S., but across the world. So definitely, the time we spend out evaluating and recruiting and traveling is, huge at Division I level. And then definitely, the level of golf that we play with our guys, going to, be on TV, to be on the Golf Channel, to help our guys, win the USAM instead of just make an amateur tournament, let alone qualify for the USAM. All of those things really helping them define the small aspects of the game, which we all know is, every jump you make in golf, the next level just gets that much harder. So it's teaching these guys to go from good to great, which is certainly it's a fun journey to go through with them, but definitely can be trying at times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because they're trying to balance so many different things. And as you said, they're at that age where, I was at that age an eon ago, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, let alone trying to, go to a big name school. But there's a lot of talk about the relationship that you have with Devon, and I'm sure you have it with all the guys on the team. We have a lot of parents that listen to the podcast. A lot of junior players listen to the podcast, and they've come to me and asked questions like, okay, how does my junior get ready to play collegiately? And I've asked this question a lot, and I like asking this question to anyone that I think is qualified to answer it. But what are some of the things that you see in sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school that they want to play collegially? What are some of the things that you see that would really attract you to a potential player? And then what are the things that maybe you see that give you pause, give you concern, saying that could be a problem?
I think certainly it's, the kids that are going to be proactive about really taking ownership of their entire game and their entire development. So, if I have a conversation with a junior golfer and we're talking about what went well or what didn't go well at a tournament, and it's a lot of, the weather was tough, and so I couldn't really shape shots, or I'm not really sure what I'm working on in my game right now, or I'm just kind of going to the range and hitting balls. If there's no kind of set plan there, or they're solely reliant on other people to get them to the weight room, or a swing coach to put together a practice plan or teach them how to play a golf course, and they're not willing to do some of those things on their own, I think that would definitely give me some pause. Because as much as we can spend time with our guys and we do everything we can to try to help them grow as players, and I'm responsible for helping 12 guys at a time get better. So there's only so much time I can spend with all of them.
Right.
I think for all junior golfers, to put yourself against that next level is huge. We always encourage, whether it's our recruits or our commits, to go out and, go play in a PGA Tour pre-qualifier or a web.com Monday, jump into, a high level amateur tournament, whether you're a freshman or sophomore in high school or even later, so you can really see what it's like to play against the college kids and how their game's a little bit different, maybe how they play a golf course differently than you might play it. So to go push yourself to that regard, it gives you a little bit of information in terms of, how far behind I am with these guys, what I need to learn, but certainly will also, show you what it's like to play at the next level, and maybe that their game plan is that much better. The pins are this much more difficult, so I'm going at that pin where he's hitting into the middle of the green, so he has an easy 2-putt for par, and now I'm short-sighted and really working to just make par, if not make bogey or worse. So definitely, getting them to go out and push themselves at a level they're really uncomfortable at, while taking ownership of, this is my swing coach. This is why I swing the club this way. He's not telling me that I have to swing it this way.
Okay.
I think that's a big disconnection that gets lost. I want a kid to understand who they are as a player, what makes them good as a player, and then be willing to be coached, as opposed to needing to have all that information come from a parent or a coach.
Interesting. So now let me ask you this, just without giving you a ton of specifics. I know this might be a little bit, might be a little bit difficult, but if you look at a playing resume of a junior and you see, some top 10 finishes in some, regional, maybe state junior tournaments, but then you also see maybe another player who doesn't have a lot of those, but has a lot of, 73s and 74s, missing cuts at qualifiers for USGA, web.com. You're more intrigued. Are you more intrigued with a kid like that over this kind of the big fish in the small pond in the junior circuit?
I think it would definitely be worth a look. I mean, one thing we do, with all of the kids that we're interested in is we're going to spend time in person evaluating them, because scores can certainly tell a lot of things, but you can put, like you said, I mean, you can find kids that are only going to play local stuff on easy courses where they know they can beat up the course and beat up other kids and dominate.
Right.
And, like we've all seen, I mean, as great as a 68 is in the game of golf, not all 68s are created equal.
Right.
So I would certainly rather see a kid go out and push himself. And, if he's willing to go out there and have some decent success at high level amateur tournaments, or, maybe go shoots 1 under at a pre-qual, but still misses it, that's pretty solid. I have a good sample to compare that kid to an active college player, which is an easier, comparison for me to make maybe across the board on a 10th grader versus a 10th grader. So I think, he's a kid that would definitely trigger, our interest, and we would definitely try to spend some time out on the course evaluating, how he might play and what his skill looks like. And certainly we're trying to project what that kid's going to be when he gets to college, as opposed to what he simply is now.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I was very curious about that when you mentioned that you see the value in really pushing themselves and getting outside their comfort zone. So that's excellent advice for a junior that wants to get themselves acclimated to what it's going to be like in college. Speaking about one of your players, lots been reported about your relationship with Devon Bling, as I stated. When did you first meet Devon Bling?
I first met Devon at Junior Players. I want to say going into his senior year of high school. So, he was committed to UCLA when I was hired. So he was already there. And, I spent the next 2 years of his high school, his junior and senior year, kind of finishing up the recruiting process, making sure, obviously, stays committed to the school, checking in on him, making sure his development's going well. The first time in person that we met was, would have been Junior Players going into his senior year. And then he came, on another official visit trip to come to a football game with some of our other commits in his class and get to know the guys. And that's kind of where I think it really all started with us. And And, I definitely have a really close relationship, not just with him, but certainly with, the entire team. And with kids like Devon, I mean, like I have with, one of his teammates, Cole or Hide or Sean in the freshman class this year, there are always those kids you're going to spend a lot of time with, whether they make the travel team, you're going to walk with them. Certainly, spending an entire week last year at the USAM with him was definitely different than, done with other of his players. But, I think we see the game of golf very similarly, and we have a lot of, mutual interests there. So I think it's, been a good relationship for us to get on the golf course and work together, and certainly, be in a good place off the golf course as well.
When you go to the USAM, you went last year to the USAM, and it's his first USAM. It's at Pebble Beach, and you're going to be on the bag. I'm curious, do you kind of take your coaching hat off and kind of work more as a caddy, or describe the relationship? Is it the same when you're on campus, or do you guys both kind of maybe get into a different mode, or do you even really think about it?
No, I think it takes a little bit of a different mode. I mean, it was definitely a mixed bag, I think, at the AM last year because, by chance, I do with all of my players. Anyone that ever qualifies for the AM, I give them the opportunity. I always ask our guys, do you want me to caddy, and kind of on a first come, first serve basis. And he was our first guy to qualify last summer. And very much like I did with one of his teammates, Cole Mady at Riviera the year before, it was our first. And he jumped on the opportunity, wanted me to come. But I actually mixed up the dates. And I had to go back to him and tell him, hey, I'm actually already scheduled to be in Las Vegas for Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I would have to miss the practice rounds and your first round of stroke play. If that's fine. And he kind of said yes. I mean, I've spent a lot of time at Pebble and Spyglass, so luckily I knew the course as well. But that was kind of, the funny thing on my end, because I botched the dates. And then, for any West Coast people coming out, it's nearly impossible to fly easily from Vegas to Monterey.
Sure.
So instead of flying, I drove the 9 hours after I finished in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And during those 9 hours, we spent about an hour and a half talking about how the golf course were playing in the practice round, and then how his first round went at Pebble that day, where he didn't play all that well. So definitely the coaching hat stayed on there, because I wanted to make sure, he had a good sense of what he had to do the next day, but how he could make the easy adjustments during that time. And then also kind of give him the reflection of, he was in the exact same situation after round one as his teammate Cole was the year before, where he struggled on maybe the easier of the two courses in stroke play. But all you really have to do then is, go shoot 2-3 under, and you walk into match play. So give him context where it doesn't need to be 66. You don't have to try to go press. Just go play a nice, simple round of golf. You could go shoot a couple under and you're right in. And then when we get onto the golf course, certainly for it, it's where we have a pretty defined game plan, but it's really more of keeping him in check in terms of, here's our game plan, here's what we're trying to execute, and then keep everything in perspective throughout the week. We don't need to worry about your golf swing if you miss one. We don't need to talk about a putting stroke if you miss a putt. Let's keep it in context for what it is, and then kind of move forward with what we're trying to execute out there. And he did a great job of it. I mean, he only made one mistake during that first round, or that second round of stroke play when I was with him. He got to maybe 4 under, and then missed for the first time short-sided on 16, dumped it in the bunker, plugged, made double from that, and could have gotten a little tentative, but we kind of reset it, just kind of like, look, you only need one birdie coming home. And he birdied 17 from about 8 feet, gave himself a great look on 18, and we kind of, thought he was going to be exactly where he needed to. So certainly once we get onto the golf course, it's more about the game plan and trying to keep everything in check. And then, the afternoons and stuff in between match play rounds, then if we need to talk about mechanics or clean things up a little bit, throw the coaching hat more on directly, do what we need to there, and then get back on the golf course and simply play golf.
What, you guys spent a lot of time together. I'm sure you spent a lot of time together when you guys are on campus and traveling to tournaments, but an entire week with him and no other players. What's it like in the downtime? Are you guys hanging out, or are you guys kind of going your separate ways? What do you do are you trying to keep them relaxed, or kind of what's the downtime like during the biggest amateur tournament in the world?
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of both. Certainly once we got to match play, things the scheduling of it becomes so crazy that there really isn't all that much downtime. I mean, once you get past the round of 64 and you're playing 36, so you might have some lunch in between. So, we would just, watch some TV, eat lunch, get out to the next match, finish that match. I would go to dinner with him and his parents, or him and his dad and his brother. and then, move on to the next match the next day. And for the most part, I mean, there wasn't that much free time, which I think really worked in his favor. We didn't have that much time to kind of think about everything that was happening. Certainly until the only day we had a lot of free downtime was once he had finished the semifinal match, because they play that early in the morning. We finish, and then you don't play the next match almost until, late morning, early afternoon, or the early morning to start the final. So you had that entire afternoon for the most part to think about it, but certainly spent some time together, really just hang out. He had more and more family coming in each day, which kind of made it fun to kind of meet new people in his family. I had it kind of talk about how the whole thing was working and going through it. And then his teammates started to come up. So, we just had more people around. So
Nice.
It really was a really, really fun environment. Certainly, I think we did everything we could, at least on my end, to make sure that no one was talking about what could happen if he got to the final, as things, especially once we got about to the round of 8. I was texting his teammates being like, no one mentioned that if we're in the semifinal, there's a master's exemption on the line. We don't need to know those things, because I never came up in his mind, never came up in a conversation with us. Same with his dad and his brother. It was really not a thought until we made the final. I kind of reminded him.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned that when I had him on a couple of weeks ago in the episode. I'm thinking because in my mind, I'm thinking, look, I don't care if you steal his cell phone and don't let him on the internet. I'm assuming that everyone in those shoes, I mean, that has to be the toughest match in amateur golf, the semifinal match of the USAM, because what's on the other end. And then he totally shocked me by saying, I put it out of my mind, I forgot about it. And then you reminded him as you guys were coming off 18 after you beat Celinda. You're like, hey, we're the Masters of the US Open. Okay, great that he had it out of his mind. What about you? What was that round like caddying for him? Because it went to the 18th hole. It was a fantastic match. Were you just a wreck?
No, honestly, I mean, I think it worked out as good as it could go, because I know Isaiah obviously very well through Stanford, and then just by chance, Isaiah's caddy was a former Stanford player named Bradley Knox, who I actually knew very well because I coached and played against his older brother when I was at Oxy, both as a player and then as a coach. So I knew Bradley really well. So just the environment of the match was very comfortable for all of us. So even though there was something huge on the line, I think, we were just out there kind of playing golf and having fun. And I'm honestly not 100% sure that Devon knew what happened if he made the final.
Oh, really?
Because it never came up 100%. And if his dad knew and did research about it, it was never a talking point during a single warm-up, a single match, a single dinner, anytime. And I knew the media, everyone obviously tell him once he made the final. So that was the first time that I told him once it was done, because I knew then obviously it would be a point of talking that afternoon. But for the most part, I don't know if he did. And I think that's a huge resource for him, because he obviously, it's a big distraction he can leave out. And then, certainly getting a very comfortable match like that in the semifinal with a really good kid and certainly a great player in Isaiah, and, another kid that we're both comfortable with, and Bradley on the bag for him, definitely worked out in both of our interests.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't fathom that he would, I mean, I completely believe you, and that's great that it went down like that, but I can't imagine anyone can really go into that match not knowing that, but that's great that he got through it. So you're off to the Masters. At any point, so when did it become a reality that you were going to be on the bag for him? Because, you mentioned that Spyglass, Pebble Beach very well, but have you ever been to Augusta National? What was the discussion to have you on the bag?
Yes, we by chance had taken the team to Augusta last year for the Masters. So when Kevin Chappell and Patrick Cantley are both in it, we played Augusta State's event. And as part of their event, that every team that plays gets Monday tickets for the practice round. And since both Kevin and Patrick were in there, Kevin was kind enough to let the guys come in the ropes on 11 and take a picture and kind of show them around the course. So that was the only time before you go into the prep trip to Devon that I had been on property and seen the whole thing in person. But, for us, it was, really Devon, myself, and Coach Freeman kind of meeting throughout the fall and kind of figuring out how our scheduling was going to work, because we had, not just to make the decision on who was going to be with Devon, what would put him in the best environment, but certainly then, potentially if I did it and went with him, we're losing one of our two coaches for 2 events in an entire week in Arizona. So it was kind of, finding that balance and figuring it out. And I think, once we got to a place where, Devon kind of made it clear that at least from a comfort standpoint with what the environment was going to be, that from keeping him calm and knowing his game, that he would be most comfortable with me there. And the team had gotten to a point where, I thought we as a coaching staff were, pretty happy and confident with them being pretty self-reliant, being able to do it without needing their hands held as much. I think it became, a pretty obvious decision to have me go with him. And then it was really figuring out how we were going to, put him in a place and myself to learn the golf course as well as possible. So it was, we got a great local caddy for both of his trips. We had two different ones. The caddy that I spent time with during his second prep trip in March did a phenomenal job on really helping us learn the golf course, and then using other resources around. I talked to, probably 4 or 5 other swing coaches that had players play in previous Masters, get their yardage books, get notes from them, certainly other players as well. We both spent a day with Corey Pavin picking his brain about the golf course and how to prep for the week and everything we could there. And he was a huge resource as well. So I was really doing as much homework as possible. And definitely, I studied this golf course maybe more intently than I have, really any golf course that we've had to play at UCLA, maybe with the exception of Carson Creek for nationals last year.
With I know it's hindsight 2020. He had a fantastic experience. Played the par 3, makes an ace on the par 3, which is just incredible. He makes the cut, plays all 4 rounds. But was there ever a time where you were thinking to yourself, I know you want me on the bag, and because I'm your coach and you're going to be comfortable with me, but I just don't know this place well enough. And I was there ever a moment where you're thinking like, he really needs to have an Augusta caddy on the bag?
Oh, that's a good question. Certainly we had a couple days where, like the wind really started to pick up for one of our practice round days, and like 11 and 12, things started to get a little hectic. And then, really making that decision on club, for the most part, became a little bit harder. So maybe somewhere there, but honestly, for the most part, I thought I had a pretty good sense of the golf course, but I definitely thought I had a better sense of his game. Okay. So more than anything else, I thought that was really what was going to be critical for him is, knowing the golf course there is obviously massive, but for him and his strengths and weaknesses, because he wants to be a swashbuckler and do the impossible and all of that, but being able to, tell him like, maybe not the time or place. Like, we don't need to shoot for the left pin on 15 at Augusta, even though maybe you can do it. Let's hit it out right. Maybe use a slope. If it stays out there, you can hit the putt. Knowing that I could help him manage himself around that property, I think ultimately became more valuable than, every little detail we might have been able to pick up from being there. Because as I'm sure past Masters champions would tell you, every time you go there, I'm sure there's more and more you can learn. We'll continue to learn stuff, but we did some pretty good homework. We had a pretty good idea of everything, but I think certainly, helping him create a game plan that was best for him was going to be really the biggest key to him succeeding.
So you get to Augusta National. You've been there before, as you said. By the way, just so you know, I probably have a semester of eligibility left. So if you would like to put me on the team for next year, that way I can go along with you. That way I can get Monday tickets to the Masters. I'm just throwing it out there. It is an option. And probably would have some struggles academically, but we'll forget about that. That's details. You don't need that.
If we go back to Augusta State's event, I'll keep that in mind. I don't think we're planning on it for now, but
okay.
Certainly if we are, especially being down in your part of the country, we could always use a little Bermuda experience. I'll definitely keep it in mind.
And what D1 Pac-12 powerhouse wouldn't benefit from a 42-year-old transfer student? That's really what you're needing right now. But you spend a week, at Augusta National, and I could ask you the cliche of like, what was the most surprising thing that you saw or you experienced? But I wanted to ask you about being a kind of a professional caddy for the week. You're around these professional caddies, whether it's, Paul Tesori on the bag for Webb Simpson, Joe LaCava for Tiger, Fanny Sinison is there with Stenson. You're in their environment for the week. What was your experience just being one of the caddies at arguably the biggest tournament in the world?
It was awesome. First off, I thought it was the hospitality of the members and the golf club were exceptional, and every player that Devon had a chance to interact with would not just share knowledge with him, but were more than willing to talk to me as well. And I thought that fraternity of players was awesome, whether it's them and the caddies as well, was really helpful and really, really great experience. I definitely think for me, caddy-wise, the biggest thing that surprised me was just kind of how fast, everything moves in terms of, he's got the shot, you got to be on the next one. And, everyone plays relatively quick, even though we had one slow round, but, definitely difference from being a player to a caddy, just kind of everything seemed to move a little faster where, got to get on the next club and fill in the divot and go ahead and get the pin and clean his ball and maybe clean another player's ball. Certainly things just seem to move a little bit faster than they, are when I'm a player.
Yeah, I thought about it. So there was no like caddy hazing. No one went behind you and took the nameplate off the back of your jumpsuit and put it on upside down or anything. I mean, it was all on the up and up, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, they were all great to us, certainly. And, I think it's a pretty cool one. And I obviously don't know how it is for every other event, but, for the caddy house is at Augusta National relative to the tournament range, all the players are in there too. So you not just had, all the caddies together, you had them with all the players as well. And just thought it made for, a great environment, where everyone was pretty open and honest to sharing everything. And no one really kind of, gave us a bad look or anything with anything we had going on that week.
Nice. So yeah. And I think I remember reading somewhere where someone had to kind of push him to go introduce himself to Tiger.
Yeah, he was nervous about it for sure, but both, myself and his swing coach, Chris Mason, who joined us for the first half of the week, as we were leaving, for Wednesday, we were done with our practice session, getting him ready for the par 3. Tiger was on the right side of the range, and we we're going to walk right past him. And it's, one of those experiences, if you're an amateur there, you have to do it. And, we kind of had to push him in to do it a little bit. I would say the two biggest things that maybe him and his family were nervous of were, pushing Devon to go meet Tiger and then trying to convince his brother during the par 3 to hit the ball on 9. Really didn't want to do it. They were very apprehensive and nervous about it, but it's one of those things like, look, he's not going to be mean to you. He's super honest and open about everything. And Tiger was amazingly nice to him, told him he had watched him at the AM, which gave him a huge boost.
Oh, God,
and then,
awesome.
I think the biggest thrill for Devon, which we have two of the biggest Tiger Woods fans in the world in the senior class that he plays with here at UCLA, that on Sunday while we were warming up and going through our putting routine, kind of cross paths with Tiger as he was early into his warm up and, hit Devon's balls back to him and told him, hey, you're playing great, kid. Good luck the rest of the week. And Devon got a huge thrill out of that to see Tiger talking to him in his Sunday red, obviously right before he won. I think something that he'll never forget.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just such an incredible memory that you're going to have and that Devon's going to have just the rest of your life. I mean, you were there. I mean, you were there at that Masters, of all the Masters to get to play in. You go off, you make the cut. And of course, so I wanted to ask you this, you made the cut on the number, and I was watching Friday and I was watching with some friends, and, they're just paying attention to who's in the lead. And I think they're looking at that point. Let's see. So Adam Scott and Koepka and, I know that Molinari's up there and Tiger, of course, is nearby, but I'm looking at the scores and I know that he's at +3. And I think, if I remember correctly, the last real chance to bump out the +3s was Adam Scott's birdie putt on 18, which I believe was just kind of like a 15-foot downhill or something like that. Where were you guys at that point? Were you still on property, or were you back at a house watching it on TV, or did you not want to know about it? Or were you even with Devon?
No, we split up. We tried to stay, we grabbed lunch after we finished. And then we tried to watch about 40 minutes of it and, kind of realized like this is going to be a super long afternoon.
Right.
So he went home and kind of hung out with his family there. And I originally was at the hotel where I was staying, just watching. We were kind of texting back and forth as players were making a move and making a run. But I kind of got so nervous and anxious that I actually called the coach at Augusta State and asked him if I could hit balls at his facility, because I didn't want to watch any of it. I was too nervous to keep going through it. And the first time I actually popped back in to watch any of it was when Adam Scott was on 16.
Okay.
So obviously, not a great moment for Adam, but it was crazy for us and kind of caught us both off guard. Devon immediately called me after that. And then, when Adam missed that putt on 18, it was huge. And then the only other real charge coming up, which I think Devon was a little apprehensive about, maybe being the person to knock him out, was Tiger. Started to charge pretty hard on that back 9 and had a pretty good look on either 16 or 17 to get to 8.
Right.
And missed it. And then he originally texted me being like, my idol is going to be the guy that knocks me out of the cut at the Masters. So once Tiger put it in the bunker on 18, or just missed the green, we felt pretty good about the whole thing.
Sure.
And we're through the roof about it. We were actually tied with Martin Keimer at that same score, and ended up playing with him not just the first 2 days, but also on Saturday. And I think he was kind of in the same boat. And Devon joked with him the next morning, being like, yeah, like that was the longest afternoon of my life. And Keimer was like, yeah, what about me? Like, yeah, it was for me too. So, he was really funny about that. But certainly it was well worth the wait, but a very long wait at that.
Of course. Now, you one of the most unique things about this Masters, not just Tiger winning after, a major championship drought for 11 years, but this is the first time, due to the weather and due to everything that was happening, that it was split tees on Sunday, and they moved the tee times up to the morning to kind of beat this storm. So you went off 10, you make the turn to then tee off 1. How different and odd was that to just play the course in reverse and also play it that early and have such a quick turnaround?
Yeah, it definitely created, the whole thing became very different, because even when we got to, an iconic hole like 12, there were definitely people there that, had been there for a while and were getting ready for the afternoon, but it was still relatively quiet, and there weren't that many people there in general. And then when we got to the back 9, we were playing with defending champion Patrick Reed. So, still expect maybe there'd be a gallery or, a good group watching him. And we were playing with Keith Mitchell, another Georgia guy. So we figured we'd have good support. But all of a sudden, by the time we got to, I want to say 6, it was a ghost town. Like, we could see everyone that had come to 6 had, moved their way over to, 16 green, which is right by there. And then when we got back, it was a really funny moment. Kind of wish almost I could take a picture of it. When we got to 8 green, he had a phenomenal drive, went for it in 2, and put himself in a great spot. We got to 8 green, and we could start really hearing the roars. We knew where Tiger was from that. And then actually walking up that hole, good UCLA moment for us was when Patrick Cantlay made eagle on 15.
Yeah.
And we could hear a crazy roar, and then we saw the scoreboard change. So certainly cool to, have a Bruin in contention while we were there. But the only people on the hole at 8 were the 12 members of Devon's family, and they were the only people sitting in the entire bleachers on 8. So even Patrick Reed kind of joked, being like, this is way quieter than the worst practice round time you could choose.
I was just going to say, it's like all of a sudden a throwaway junior tournament broke out at Augusta National or something, where just, some nice kid and his family are just walking around watching him play golf. And, oh, by the way, you're at Augusta National.
Exactly. But, I think obviously it lost a little bit of the allure what Sunday should be for anyone that makes the cut at the Masters. Yeah. But it was unique, to say the least. And Devon had an unbelievably unique week to make a hole-in-one and then be one of 4 AMs to make the cut. Certainly, as much as, maybe you miss, some of the roars that you could get as well on Sunday, it's something that, he'll be a part of, maybe one of the only Masters ever to do something like that. And being something that unique and with that much history, something that he'll never forget, certainly.
You just kind of glossed over, but again, just an incredible memory. He plays in his first Masters, and he plays Sunday with the defending champion. Tell me about the experience with Patrick Reed.
He was a huge gentleman the whole day. And I thought one of the best moments that I think we really appreciated from Patrick was, Devon got off to a rough start in that final round, made bogey. And when we were walking, hit a phenomenal tee shot for really the first time all week on 13. And Patrick kind of, gave him a little finger waggle to come run up ahead, and kind of, just put his arm around him and was like, hey, dude, like, you look a little nervous, but it's Masters Sunday, dude. You're on the back 9 at Augusta on a Sunday at Masters. Like, have fun with it. Just have a deep breath. And for him to go out of his way to do that for Devon, going, trying to move up the leaderboard himself, definitely I thought, was a great representation of, who he is as a champion for Augusta National, and was something that, was a big moment for Devon to kind of take a deep breath and play the rest of the round in 200 par. So did a great job to work himself back after that.
You've gotten back from the Masters. You're trying to get back to real life a little bit, and you got your team to take care of, but you're also playing quite a bit as well. You're not just an Augusta National caddy and a U.S. Amateur caddy and an assistant coach at UCLA. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing with your playing career, what you're getting ready for right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. The month of April has become very unique for me now, not just with, obviously, can't forecast out getting to be on the bag for Devon, for Devon at the USAM. And then, I qualified through our section championship back into the PGA National Club Pro, which the top 20 from that gets into the PGA Championship. And with the reshuffle of the majors now with the PGA Championship moving to May, that event, which used to be in June, now comes up to April as well. So I'll be in Los Angeles for 4 days in the month of April. 3 of those days are right now. I'm just back from Augusta right before I actually recruit, before I go up to Eugene. And then we'll meet the team in Eugene for Pac-12s and then fly straight from there to South Carolina at Belfair to play the PGA Club Pro. So it's a lot of, fitting in some extra practice when I can. I'm hopefully going to, if I can get away from the team, for a couple nights, at Eugene, hit a couple balls on trying a lit range and getting some work there. And then hopefully, do some putting in my room and keep myself in as good a shape as I can to, make another good run at the Club Pro here in a few weeks. So it'll be a busy time, and then, get back to May, start prepping for regionals. And I always go with a couple of our players to play, local qualifying for the US Open as well. So that'll come around here pretty early in May for us, right before regionals.
Who is the player on your team that you would want to caddy for you right now?
Ooh, great question. I would probably go with Cole Mady because we played the most golf together, and he knows my game pretty well. And, he's been here for 4 years with me for his entire career. So I think, he would be a good one. I did kind of mention to Devon, if I get into the PGA Championship and play well at the Club Pro, that if he doesn't have class, he might come out for that as well, since I'll actually have to go directly from regionals to the first round. So I won't play any practice rounds at Bethpage Black. If I made it, I would just go straight in the first round, since the team is certainly the priority and we got to get them to the national championship.
Sure.
And the Wednesday of regionals is the day before the first round of the PGA Championship. So if we could swing it, I think it'd be kind of unique to be on the bag for majors 1 and 3 of the year with Devon and have him on the bag for number 2.
That would be incredible. And of course, you would have to haze him a little bit. I mean, you can throw a couple rocks in your bag if he's looping for you, right? I mean, he can. No? Okay. Sorry.
I would hope. I would say he's in maybe a little better shape than me. They are in the gym a little bit more as of right now, but he definitely was kind enough to make his bag pretty light for me at Augusta. So nice. I might have to return the favor for that.
Before I let you go, I asked Devon this question. It is involving one of your other players. Through my research for his episode, just looking at social media, looking at some of the noticeable guys in your team, and I'm not even talking about what they do on the golf course, but can you? I'm not sure if he's ever going to be a guest here. I would love to talk to him, but can you maybe share a story of the phenomenon of Eddie Lai for me?
Oh, absolutely, and we could definitely set it up for him to be a guest for you. He would love it.
He's getting a cult sensation, because I get the feeling that is the marketing superstar of UCLA men's golf right now.
100%, without a doubt. I mean, we started a hashtag for him either last year, right before our golf camp, or during the golf camp, the legend of Eddie Lai, after any post we put up of him. I mean, Eddie is, he works harder than anyone else on the team. He's an unbelievable teammate and a great leader for us, but he's just the funniest, most open guy you could ever imagine. He's willing to, just do whatever it takes to pump his teammates up and really get them going. And, as funny as a lot of the stuff on social media has been just with him during the team interaction, for me as a coach, and Devon was actually a part of it last year as well. They were both, as just finishing their freshman year, camp counselors at our summer camp, and Eddie became a 10-year-old. Relived his childhood through these kids. And I mean, it was just we had to rein him back with a lot of these kids allotted. Like, you're the one supposed to be keeping them in check, and you're the one leading all the crap right now. And like getting these kids wild and crazy when we're trying to calm them down so they can hit balls. And he's just such a fun-loving kid, man. And all of it just natural too. There's never any scripted, right. Nothing we ever really put up of him is like we're telling him to do something. It's all the candid videos we catch of it. And, he's really the emotional heart and soul of this team. Definitely keeps us in a great light, work ethic wise, as well as just in great spirits going into every event.
That is going to have to be a special bonus episode at the back of the range. I need to experience the legend of Eddie Lai at some point. But actually, since we're going to be teammates next year at Augusta State, I'll have a lot of free time to spend with him since I'm going to be your new transfer. So really, it doesn't need to even be on the phone. We'll just do it at Augusta. So that's perfect.
Yeah, we'll just make you guys roommates. You make it just a nice live episode.
No problem. We can get that done. Well, Coach, I really do appreciate the time. I know you are. I know it has been a whirlwind of a week for you just coming back from Augusta, but I appreciate you spending time with us here at the back of the range. Really great insight into, what your team is getting ready to do and your experience at Augusta National with Devon Bling. All the best to you this season. All the best to you at the U.S. Open with Devon, and hopefully he is on the bag for you at the PGA Championship. So again, I appreciate you joining me here at the back of the range.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciating you having me and Devon last week, and certainly go Bruins going into the postseason.
And there you have it, another great episode here at the back of the range. Thanks so much to Coach Larkin of UCLA for joining us this week. Really appreciate his time. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Go to thebackoftherange.com for all of the information on this podcast. And we'll see you again next week for another episode here at the Back of the Range.